There we go. Ah, there we are. Hello, people. We're here. Hi, chat room. Sorry, we had to get our Skypes connected, and then we were all set. So say hi to Jeff. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Is it sunny in California today?
I couldn't tell because even though I have a beautiful view outside these windows here in the Presidio, we have to keep them shut all day so I can see the screens.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tragedy.
Do they let you go outside for lunch at least?
Yes, usually. So you can get a little fresh air every now and then. But
I know. I spend way too much time in front of a computer screen too. I totally relate. All right, I'm going to get the tweet out so we know people. Tell them we're live. And Marconin, can you put something in Discord and just let people know we're live too?
I'll get right on that.
I get weird static if I use Discord on this system, so.
Ah, yeah. You got it.
Thank you, sir. I got it there. All these promotion things.
Am I allowed to do the at everyone in Discord?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I'll do it.
Awesome. So chat room, we will read questions from you guys in just a second with everything for Jeff, and if you guys have questions in chat, let us know. We'll make sure he sees them too.
I like our background. That's nice.
Thank you. This is actually new. We had this designed, and is the GIF working? Is the GIF actually working back there?
I'll check.
I will push that up. There it is.
A little bit, yeah. I can see a little.
It needs to be moved. That needs to be moved. Let's fix that.
All right.
Now it's moving. It's like
perfect.
The trickery that we do. Now it looks like there's fire. You'll see fire moving in there. Awesome. All right. We tested our Sounders chat room. Let me know that you can hear the ready check. You guys ready? The cozy background in there. We're on our non-normal night, so people are kind of like, "What's going on? Why is Tauren Think Tank on now?"
What's going on?
What's going on, people? All right. Oh, they're saying pull. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right.
Great.
We are ready to roll. We're going to count it down, and we will go with our interview with Jeff White in 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to Tauren Think Tank, the podcast about the Blizzard gamer behind the keyboard.
It's episode 191. It's 191 of Tauren Think Tank. I couldn't remember what number it was. And we're here on a Wednesday evening at 9:38 p.m. in the Central Time Zone because we have a special episode for you guys this week. As you know, we were out of town last week. Marconin and I were in Minnesota to see the Warcraft movie, and we brought someone back with us. Well, we didn't quite do that. With us tonight is a special guest from Industrial Light and Magic, the visual effects supervisor of the Warcraft movie. Please welcome Jeff White.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, chat room.
Hi, chat room. Hi, listeners. And this is actually the really cool story about how we came to meet each other through your brother Dan.
Yeah. Small world, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Pretty amazing.
Now, are you originally from Wisconsin? Are you guys both from Wisconsin?
No, we grew up in upstate New York.
Okay.
And I moved to Portland after graduate school. He came along with me, and he met his future wife there, and she was from Iowa. And so when they drew a circle around Davenport, Iowa, the place they most wanted to live was Madison, Wisconsin. Yeah. And he went to the University of Wisconsin for his study in games, and now he's built a company there doing educational games, which at the time he started it, everybody said you never have a business in this, and he's actually been pretty successful.
He's been wonderfully successful, and I got a chance to meet him because his business started in the same building that that my current employer is in.
Oh.
And I happened to meet him there at a luncheon where he was speaking about Filament Games. And it was amazing. So we started talking about gaming and podcasting, and he said, my brother, you should talk to my brother because he worked on the Warcraft movie. And I think my mouth was on the floor in about 30 seconds and just stayed there. And he was true to his word. He got me in touch with you, Jeff, and we started talking and decided, hey, we could talk about the Warcraft movie when it comes out.
Yes, I know. I would have loved to talk to it before that, but
I know.
Yeah, it's much more interesting if we can talk after you've seen it anyhow.
Exactly. And so Marconin and I have seen it twice.
Yep.
Wow, great.
We did.
We salute you.
Went to well, I think you've probably seen it more than that.
Yes, many times. But we'd really like to make another one. So the more everybody sees it, the better. We're super happy about it.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be seeing it at least 2 more times with other friends.
You will personally bring a sequel to
yes.
it.
I'll just give Legendary and you guys my wallet and just say just keep taking money out until we get Warcraft 2.
Well, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about, of course, the Warcraft movie, and a lot of our listeners are really interested in knowing how you got started in visual effects, how you got to where you are today, and your resume on IMDb is crazy impressive. You've worked on probably every crazy nerd film we love. I was kind of just geeking out over the fact that you worked on Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad you were.
I know. It was amazing. So briefly, or however long you want to tell us, how did you get started?
I always wanted to work in visual effects. I found computer graphics in movies to be fascinating, even for a kid. And like so many of us in this industry, we watch Star Wars like, oh, that would be amazing to be able to do things like that. You go to Jurassic Park and it's just like, that's incredible that it's possible to do things at that level. So I studied film at Ithaca College, which is a very good film school that I really enjoyed going to. It's very small, but they let you get into the equipment right away. But a lot of the focus was on production. So it's like going out and shooting films, which ended up being very useful later when I started to work on set more. But I always wanted to do computer animation. So I'd work with a bunch of my friends there. We would all just kind of ad hoc. We worked for the academic computing, and we ran our render farms at night across all the different very underpowered machines, and tried to find storage for our frames, and that's kind of how I got into it. And from there, I went to graduate school in Savannah at Savannah College of Art and Design.
Nice.
And I did a year there, and then got connected with a company in Portland, which at the time was called Vinton Studios, and it was founded by Will Vinton, and they had been doing stop motion for years, which I loved as a medium, and they'd been working in doing a lot of CG commercials, and we're also very interested in getting CG films off the ground. So I started there doing M&M's commercials.
Oh, wow.
Wiener Schnitzel, if you know the hot dog chain from Los Angeles. Three Musketeers, all that kind of stuff. What's great about starting there, though, is it was in commercials especially, you kind of get to do everything.
Yeah.
I was rigging, we were lighting, writing pipeline scripts, and you really get exposed to every single part of the pipeline, which was, I think, very valuable before coming to a place like ILM, where you're much more focused on sort of one part of the pipeline. So when I went back to Savannah, I already knew I was going to, work at Vinton after college, but I met Hale Kobayashi. Actually, funny enough, when I went back, they had this day where they brought a recruiter from Digital Domain, and then Hale came from ILM, and sort of randomly split the graduate students into 2 groups. And I just happened to be in the group meeting Hale Kobayashi, who at the time worked at Industrial Light and Magic.
Wow. And
that was kind of my first connection to it. I stayed in touch with him for the next 2 years, and then at SIGGRAPH in Texas, in San Antonio, they were hiring, so I went for a very intimidating interview, and they asked, if I was interested in being a character TD, which is somebody who does rigging and simulation and kind of sits in the middle of the pipeline, or doing lighting and kind of more of the back end work. And I said, well, probably lighting TD. And they said, well, we're really only hiring character TDs right now. And I said, that sounds good. And so that's how I started at ILM. And actually, looking back now, it was a great job to start with, doing character work, because down the line, I ended up doing a lot of character films, and then this one being the ultimate character film.
Right.
For me, it was just a dream come true, coming from that kind of background.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Wow.
And you've been doing this for many years. I mean,
Which is crazy.
I know. I mean, this is like the dream.
I know. It'll be 14 years at ILM in September, which is crazy. It feels like I just started here.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
That is so cool. We have some questions from the audience about your involvement in visual effects. One of our fans, Nymphadora, asks, what process are you most heavily involved in, like design, production, post, pre, or all, and which one's your favorite?
Very good question. It depends on which job you have. Like when I started here as a character TD, you're very focused on just that part of the work. So after we create the model, which is essentially a static shell of the character, our job as character TDs is to put all the controls and all the joints in there that the animators will need to animate the characters, and set up all the skin so that it moves correctly. And then over the time that I was there, we got into more skin and muscle simulation, so that we're very anatomically correct to what's happening underneath the skin. And then that group also handles, at least at ILM, all of our character simulation work. So if they're wearing clothing, we simulate that. If they have hair, we simulate that. And we do a lot of rigid simulation, which is typically used for destruction, like a lot of building destruction we did for Transformers and things like that. Now working as a visual effects supervisor, you're really involved in, it depends project to project, but on one like Warcraft, we were involved right from the very beginning of pre-production before they shot the movie, being on set while they're shooting the movie, all the way through final post-production, till the day it's ready to go to the theater. So you really get exposed to all parts of them.
It's amazing.
It's really cool. And I know,
go ahead.
I know one thing that I really loved about the movie is how, and I know Rob Kaczynski talked about it at BlizzCon, about how he was instructed in the mocap to pretend that he was an 800-pound, and they trained to see how to move. And I know that kind of helps you guys in making sure like the muscles look right and everything. Is that fair to say?
It is. It was really interesting. We had a motion coach. I think Rob's talked a lot about this kind of orc camp that all the actors had to go through. What's amazing is that when you put the motion capture suit on and you see yourself with that motion retargeted onto an orc, if you just walk around normally, it looks ridiculous. Yeah. Terry talked a lot about needing to sort of root down, and they sat really low on their hips and, walked with a lot of weight. And, we talked a lot about like, okay, you're carrying the Doom Hammer and that thing weighs a ton, and you really have to kind of put your body into lifting that up to put it onto your shoulder. Yeah. Rob, of course, got really into it.
Yes.
He was amazing. And he was actually the first actor that I met on the project, because we did this thing called Light Stage very early, but you can think of it like a dome of 611 lights, and we put the actors in there, and then we fire them off in rapid succession. And from the photography we get with that, we can actually reconstruct very detailed pore maps of the skin, because that's a lot of times where CG characters fall apart, is their skin looks kind of plastic or waxy. Yeah. And he also did a life cast for us. So we lifted all of that pore detail off of Rob Kaczynski's skin and propagated it to all the orcs. So in a way, Rob was really happy to know that his skin is powering the entire horde.
It was awesome. So insane. That first shot when you see Der Tann sitting there and his face starts to move, and you're like, holy crap. Like, that's the introduction you get to the orcs. Nymphador also asked who designed Der Tann, because holy cow, that was my favorite orc. He was so great looking.
Well, the concept art originally for Der Tann was created by Wei Wang, who works at Blizzard, and he's amazing. I mean, just an incredible designer. He sent it. He actually did designs for almost all the hero characters, and we got them here, and a lot of them were black and white, but you could see the character there, and we got them in, and we lined them all up on the wall, and our producer was looking at us like, why do they have so much hair? So it was, Der Tann was one of the first characters that we started on the show. He was definitely one of the most challenging. But that shot in particular was a really important one for us, because it was one of the first ones that we put together to show off the facial capture system. Yeah. And when we started this project, a lot of times when we create CG characters, they don't talk that much. They kind of destroy a lot of stuff, or they blow a lot of stuff up. But when we got the script for Warcraft, we started flipping through it, and half of it was orc dialogue. Yeah. So it wasn't just orcs roaring and fighting. It was like, oh, they're sitting and having a conversation. And that was incredibly exciting, but very intimidating. Just to be able to pull off, facial performances in computer graphics is very difficult. And the orcs are so human in their design that we were really all very worried about, like, if these don't hold up, everyone's going to get bumped out of the film. Yeah. Because they're such important characters to the movie. So we talked to Duncan early on. We'd been developing our facial capture system for quite some time, and we'd used it on Avengers. We had further developed it on Turtles. Mm-hmm. And so we said, okay, the only way we can do this at the scale you're talking about, which is hundreds and hundreds of performances for the movie, is if we sit down and we keyframe everything from zero, we're just not going to finish in time. Mm-hmm. And you can't afford it. It's going to cost 10 times, what we could do. But if you can sit and work with your actors, and all the actors had to wear helmets with 2 head cameras. You've probably seen it in some of the publicity material. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then we dot their faces with about 150 tracking dots. So we use a very heavy data set for the face, so that we can, when we reconstruct it, we can actually very much capture all the little twitches and nuance that the actors put in there. And we also track the pupils. So wherever their gaze is going comes through onto the character. Mm-hmm. But we hadn't shown any of that, in any detail to those guys. So we did a test shoot early on, actually before the production started, and captured some of Rob and Toby, and use that to kind of develop our pipeline. And then on Valentine's Day, we were able to deliver to Duncan, a sample of the performance just on a gray orc. You can actually see it in our ILM breakdown video that's on YouTube. Mm-hmm. It wasn't even like realistic looking skin, but with the video side by side, you could see, yes, that performance is going to translate to these orcs in a way that the actors feel like their performance is accurately represented. Yeah. We didn't want them to feel like, oh, okay, we're out here in the pajamas and we're kind of doing a reference pass, and then you're going to change it all later. Yeah. There was no way we could, but also Duncan was amazing in that he went out and he worked with the actors to get those performances on set. He could iterate with them as much as they wanted, and then our part of the bargain was to hold up, like, okay, once you've selected that performance, you should see that on the character. And so we recorded the scene with Toby and Anna in the tent. Mm-hmm. And it's such a pivotal scene. And originally that shot that's at the beginning of the film was much wider. Yeah. But when we saw the facial capture applied to the character, we were so excited, we just punched in on it, right on Der Tann's face. And we showed it to Duncan, and he got incredibly excited. And he's like, that's the shot I want in the movie. And so even when we got into the shading of the orcs, like getting the skin to look realistic, getting the hair to look realistic, all those things, that was the shot that we were able to render and show to the entire creative team. Yes, these are going to look realistic. Yeah. And they're going to be believable characters. So eventually, within the various workings of the edit, that shot moved right to the front of the film. And I think it's so smart, a really smart move that Duncan made, because you get this great establisher, and then you go right into this close-up on the face, and it just holds there. And then if the audience buys that, then they kind of buy the orcs the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And then for us, what was so great is that then Der Tann has this incredible character arc across the entire movie.
Yes.
And it's really nice to sort of read a lot of the reviews, and whatever they are negative wise, like I see consistently like Der Tann was one of the best characters in the film. Like, that's awesome.
Yes.
I mean, that
really
says a lot about the work the artist did here, and about the performance that Toby was able to do for that character.
It was fantastic to watch that opening scene with Der Tann and Draka. They felt real. It felt like they were true characterizations. Even the moment where it's Der Tann and Doomhammer throwing rocks at each other, that those little things were very humanizing and created the actual the character. They were just a computer generated look. And
well, and nobody said, "Hey, Rob, pick up a rock and throw it at his head." It's like that's the actor coming up with something in the moment, and that's the actors performing against each other. And one of the things we try and emphasize about the way we do our facial capture, and actually the body motion capture on this film, was to not do it, with them sitting down trying to ADR performance to plates that we'd shot elsewhere. We decided right from the beginning we're going to get all of this capture on these expansive sets that they were building, so that they could play opposite all the human actors. And we also spent time, we had a couple of scenes that were outside, like with Anna, when she had to, bring baby Thrall into the river. If we were doing that shot where she kind of jumps down and she walks into the river, and she was just sitting down watching the playback, you might have one performance, but by capturing her facial performance on set, she actually sort of winced slightly when she jumped in the water because it was cold. Like that's Vancouver in the middle of the winter. So I don't blame her one bit. And then she's scanning and she's looking around her environment. Having the environment there is such a great part of getting those really authentic performances from the actors.
It was definitely
totally oppressive.
Yeah. We actually found a very interesting thing that for the scene in the tent where she's laying down, we actually facial captured her laying down, and when we got the capture in, we were like, oh, it's something strange. It's slightly off, but it actually, just from laying down, the whole face shifts just slightly from gravity of laying on your side, and that's not something you'd necessarily think to do unless you were doing that capture and seeing it come through.
Yeah, that's one thing I really, really loved about this movie, is capturing all the little things that you wouldn't normally see in CGI movies. That just all the little details that we were able to do nowadays. Someone in the chat room, Gran Negas, said that he's happy that the movie wasn't done 10 years ago when it was first announced. It was done today because we, thanks to all of you guys' hard work, we have the technology now to make it really realistic and have these really great genuine performances, instead of having people just have the tennis balls on the green screen with all that. Just having the actors there to get a more genuine performance. It's so my heart was happy to see this movie and see it done as well as it was. So absolutely.
It was I think it was absolutely critical, for the actors to be able to play off each other, and that's why Orgrim and Der Tann work so well, because when they have the confrontation, with Lothar and the King in Blackrock Valley, they're all there, and they're playing off each other, and they're doing what actors do so brilliantly. So yeah, for us, that was a dream come true. I have to say, there were many times when we looked back and we were like, I can't believe how well the facial capture was actually working.
Yes.
I mean, if you take somebody like Clancy Brown, who is amazing as Blackhand, he just brought so much character to Blackhand. out of the box, it was like, this is fantastic. The other actor that I loved was Michael Adamthwaite. He played Magni, and it was, in the final film, his part is relatively small, but his performance is so great under that beard. But you cannot see it with that massive Magni beard over top of it. Yeah. So I'm hoping someday we get to kind of release more behind the scenes where you see like all the great things that his face is doing. It's good because ultimately that drives the simulation of what his beard does.
Absolutely. And I think I remember on one of the behind the scenes, did you guys have to create something new as far as the hair goes? Was there something you had to do that you had to do on this movie to better render the hair that you didn't before? I think I remember hearing something about that.
It was definitely an order of magnitude more difficult for us hair-wise than pretty much anything we'd ever done. We did a lot of hair for Hulk, and that's where I think we established that sort of the body hair, nose hair, ear hair. But this was crazy. Just the complexity of the braids is a very, very difficult thing for us to do in computer graphics. So we had to develop an entirely new grooming system that we called Haircraft, because every tool we wrote on the show we called something craft.
I love it.
I have to say the entire team at ILM, really got into this project. We had there was 2 supervisors on it at ILM. We of course were working with Bill Westenhofer as the client-side soup, which was amazing. But it was myself and Jason Smith, and then Hal Hickel was the animation supervisor, and Nigel Sumner was at our Singapore office. And so we actually, Jason and I split it. He was the Horde unit, and I was the Alliance unit, and everybody had T-shirts that we wore every Friday. And,
that's awesome.
We'd open every dailies with like a nice round of fantasy music to get everybody in the mood for it. So we really had the best time. And what was amazing when we started on the project is just out of the woodwork came all of the Warcraft fans that are here. And it was really great. I think that was a big part of why people were so excited about the project and just making it incredible. The texture painter who painted Gul'dan is I forgot what level she told me she was at, but it was impressively high.
Wow.
I was like, when do you have time to do that and do this incredible work?
Yeah, because you were telling me that there were a lot of Warcraft fans that were on this project team as well. Yeah. So how geeked out was everybody when they learned that you were taking on this project?
Oh, it was so much fun. I mean, Bill Westenhofer is, he was, I forget which character he said he was, but he was at level 90 before the expansion, and he's put a considerable amount of time into it, and so he was sort of our go-to. Like anytime we had a question, it's a lot of times for us with the environments and building these out, Duncan had this idea that he wanted to really embrace this small world idea where if you're standing in one location, you might see 2 or 3 other locations in the distance. And so in every shot, we were working with Bill to kind of orient ourselves of like, okay, Goldshire's over here, and then okay, if we're going to get to Black Morass, we kind of go back here, and then we should see Swamp of Sorrows along the way. Yeah. It was a lot of complexity as far as just we really tried to make sure it was accurate. I'm sure we probably messed up here and there. And of course with Bill, we had a lot of fun putting in Easter eggs for the fans.
That was the best. Like that was we were so happy to see like the fishing bobber at the end. And
that was Bill.
Was that Bill?
Oh, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Actually, he personally did the Murloc. As they're crossing the bridge. Yeah, we comped the shot, but Bill, if anybody knows Blender, 3D program that you can use, it's open source, he did it all in there on his own.
Really?
Because he really wanted to have it in. Yeah, very impressive. So he passed us the rendered element, and then we comped it in. It was very fun.
That
is awesome.
Amazing. We were in a theater full of about 125 people that were all Warcraft fans that saw this movie for the first time. And we just giggled every single time we saw an Easter egg like that. it was the best. Like, I just laughed when we saw the summoning stone in the background of Elwyn Forest.
Yes, awesome.
And it was like, look.
Yeah, I mean, Westfall, if you look out there, there's the harvesters, we have pumpkins everywhere. I don't know if the shot was still in outside the Lion's Pride Inn, where you see we had a little cart full of pumpkins out there. I mean, we tried to put as much on set as we could, but certainly once we were in post-production, we were just peppering every shot with as many things as we could think of. There's the little, in the opening shot of Ironforge, the environment supervisor, Jerome Plateau, he was actually a huge Warcraft player as well, and so we put in the little tent on the road. And we sent the shot down for review, and Bill was like, "Thank you." That is awesome.
We saw that there was a dwarf standing on the ledge on that opening shot of Ironforge. Marconin actually saw it first, and he goes, "Look, it's the guy from the opening cinematic of Warcraft." Like, it was just that was really cool. Those little things that came in.
It was a really fun part of the project. I mean, we don't usually get to work on projects where you can purposefully hide those kind of things in the background. So it was nice to be able to know we could put them in there and that the fans would be able to pick them out right away.
And one other part that I really liked was that you guys put some key historical orcs in, kind of mixed in. They didn't get named, like Rom and Kilrog and Kargath, but I was seeing them and I was like, "There's the Gorehound." All of that, and it was just so awesome to see those. When I take my mom to go see it, she listens to our show, but she doesn't play WoW or anything like that. But so she won't get it. But for those things, that raised the hair on the back of my neck when I first saw them, I was like. Because the current expansion we have all of those big name heavy hitters as the big bad guys, and so it's very current for us as well as just seeing those references in the movie. It's just it was really awesome to see how much care you guys put into all the little things and all the little calls to us. We really appreciate all that.
Yeah,
it was fun being able to create those guys because we had kind of built out the various clans. And trying to make them unique is of course a real challenge. But for each clan, we kind of wanted a clan leader, of sorts. And they didn't, I really hope Duncan gets a chance to make his director's cut of this film and get it out to the fans somehow because in the end, you have to fit it into a good 2-hour movie, but it would be great to be able to see more of those characters. And Grom was very fun. Like, any shot we could, it was like, feature Gorehound, get it in there. And Kargath, same thing. He got a very, very small cameo, but he's kind of in the background of the Judgment and Black Hand's tent. And so we peppered those guys around wherever we could.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Girl of Mist from our audience asks, what are some of the visual effects that people would be surprised to learn that are practical effects and not digital?
Well, I mean, there were certainly huge set builds on this film. I think, it's very easy to look at and feel like it's all visual effects. But, besides the more obvious ones of the throne room and the Lion's Pride Inn, they built Elwyn Forest, and we shot on a set in there. And what was great and yet very challenging was we had to do motion capture in a forest. And motion capture is all about line of sight. That's why when you typically see it, it's people in a gray room with absolutely nothing around them. So to try and do motion capture in a forest with all the occlusion that includes, plus armored horses and knights and fire and all these things that are terrible for motion capture, and then at the same time try and also not just capture the data but overlay it in real time so that we Duncan always had a monitor kind of up to the left where he could see the orcs overlaid on the human actors. And it was hugely difficult. It was largely pulled off by Profile Studios and Animatrix up in Vancouver. But it was incredibly valuable because there were actually a lot of practical things we could do with it. One was Rob and Toby, they'd run together, put an arm on a shoulder, and then be like, okay, we need to do that again. You guys are inside of each other because they're so much wider than their human counterparts.
Yep.
And then, with all the orcs, but I would say especially Clancy, when he would sort of look to the right to say something or to see another orc, I'd be like, "Oh, Clancy, you're looking into this giant skull on your shoulder. Like, you actually have to open your shoulders in order to look this way.
Yep.
Like, there's no way an orc can just kind of turn his head."
Yeah,
so it helped us catch a lot of those problems on set. But
Yes.
It was also really fascinating. I think it opened a lot of eyes as far as the possibilities that were there using this technology, because while we were always capturing the humans, we also captured the camera. It had a little, we call it a Sputnik, but just a little motion capture tracker on there. And so we could do a scene like Gul'dan's tent where they could run through the performance, and they'd shoot it, and we'd keep doing it until Duncan was happy with the performances he had. And then we'd have the motion capture actors go sit down, and the camera operators could go in there and see live playback through their viewfinder of all the orc motion capture, and we could shoot all the coverage with just the virtual characters there.
Wow.
And we were so happy because now we didn't have to paint out all of these people in gray pajamas. We had perfect clean plates. But it's very difficult to sort of frame something that's not there. But now they could see, like, oh, I'm here with Gul'dan and he's charging forward. Okay, I back up. So you get much more natural camera motion out of that. And it also let us do some scenes where, like inside the tent or out the scene where Der Tann's talking to his son, we could have our motion capture actors just over in a small motion capture stage to just offset, and then the operators were filming a perfectly empty set, but they could again see the orcs through the viewfinder. And so it just, I think it sort of, for everybody, it kind of opened a lot of eyes as far as the possibilities when using that kind of technology for filmmaking. But it is difficult. It requires a lot of people, and they're using 300 cameras in these enormous capture volumes, and then having to, because they're very expensive, take them all down and move them over to another building and set them up again for an entirely different setup was very challenging.
That is
Definitely.
so cool. Oh, I love it. There was a question from our audience from Sat Pagel, who said, was there a person doing motion capture for the Griffin in the fight scene? Or was that pure
That would
CGI?
be awesome. I would love to see. That would be really fun. That was pure CGI, and I have to say, for the best part about the motion capture for this show is. I definitely don't want to undersell the contribution of the animators. Like, you get the motion capture and it gets you a long way, but it means the animators can spend their time going from 80 to 100% instead of 0 to 80. And but it still takes a tremendous amount of finesse on their part to get these characters working. The Griffins are all keyframe, and they had so much fun in that final scene. If you see, like, we would go to dailies and we'd see the renders come through and we'd just all start laughing because there'll be Lothar, turning down on the ground, and in the background there's a Griffin like flipping an orc up into the air.
Yep.
Or there's another one later where it like grabs some armor off one orc and then puts it on its wing. Like, why is it doing that? And we showed it to Duncan. He's like, yeah, that's really cool. So it's in the movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so neat.
I really like the scene when the wolf is coming up to Lothar and he's holding the other. He's like, "How much do you love your master?" and the wolf, you can almost see like the decision making that wolf is trying to make. And it was so cool to see all of that. Well, one question I was going to ask is in WoW, I play a mage primarily, and so I know there was a whole lot of mage love with all the spells, especially with Khadgar and Medivh.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna say, like, I loved how I could tell what spell they were using pretty much in the game because of how much it looked like our in-game counterparts, all the spell effects and everything. It was I'm assuming you guys got kind of source material like animations from Blizzard to see what it looks like.
We of course enlisted our highest level mage to basically run through and video capture all of the spells that we used in the film. The magic is as hard as the orcs were, the magic was every bit as difficult.
Really?
It's so complicated. It's one of those things that you look at and it doesn't necessarily convey how hard it is to kind of put that together, because it's a motion design process. But the goal for us was we wanted the fans to be able to see any spell and feel like, I know which one that is from the game. And so we would look at the spells in game and then figure out how to plus them out for the movie. And Blizzard was a big part of that. Like we would sort of send work in progress, and they would do concept renderings of ideas that they had for it. But the other thing that was important to us is that it not just feel like magic from another film. And so looking at Warcraft, it's so cool. There's the spells happen in multiple stages, which I think is something you haven't really seen that often. And so we really embrace that, especially with the teleportation spell, being able to, first draw the runes out and see the rings rise and all the energy ribbons form up around them. That actually we sort of threw that task to animation. And so they blocked out the steps of when all of that happened before we got into the very complex particle effect sim. Khadgar uses Arcane Barrage in the forest.
Yep.
And so, we looked at the pink and blue colors and we're like, okay, we're going to do this. And and it was fun. It was a lot of sort of taking that reference. The hardest spell, I think, for us by far was the lightning wall, just as far as the scope of it. But what was so fun about that is we used that spell to add so much texture. Like when we shot that scene on set, we had a piece of wall for Blackrock Valley and the actors and the ground, and that was it. And by adding the lightning wall, we thought, well, this thing's going to kick up a lot of dust. And so then we just shrouded the whole scene in dust, and it was so much cooler. It really made it awesome. And then, when you add like some of the Laughing Skull clan in there, that looks so creepy with those masks on, that really kind of came together. So the actors really got into it as well, though. Like Ben Foster, like he worked with Terry Notary. They talked a lot about magic. He wanted to know everything about it. He wanted to know what they would be thinking while they're casting these spells and what all the different steps were. So, I think they were every bit as big a part of sort of designing, and they would come talk to us and say like, okay, here's what I was thinking for when I was casting this spell. They also had basically rigs taped to their arms that had little LEDs on them, so that as they're casting the spell, we'd work out the timing and we could remotely dial up the light on their hands, because it's very hard to fake that after the fact. It never looks real. So when he's casting the Fell Kill spell in Elwyn, we kind of dial up the light on his hands and then start to form the spell out of that.
That is so cool, because you got the reflection of it on his actual face, and it looked like he
makes a big difference.
Right. It was very, very powerful to see that. I was really just loving the fact that there was actually a magic coach to help with the movement of casting the spells too. Like and then of course there's your challenge of how to get that to move with their hands and their body language as well. So neat.
It was so fun. I think what was really great about it and made it like something I'd never seen before was using all of the sort of floating line work and runes and symbols that came from Blizzard. That we kind of made a big sheet of these things and we designed which ones would be utilized in the movie and tried to make them unique for each spell.
Very cool. Yeah. What was your favorite part to work on of this one?
I guess the one thing is just the variety. I mean, on any show, just doing the magic would be a big project. Just doing the environments would be big. But then at Or the Orcs, which was, we were so focused on, but then we got to do Griffins, Frost Wolves, Dwarves, which were basically, they were very real, but Duncan was insistent, like, I can't use an actor for this because the proportions aren't right. They're not true to the game. I think it was one of those one of those projects where it's like, oh, this is amazing. Sometimes a little overwhelming because there's so much to tackle. But we had such a fun time. I would say my favorite part of it, though, was definitely the performances with the orcs. I think seeing those start to come through from the actors and seeing how much how well the actors' performance would translate to the orcs without us having to do anything other than solve the facial capture was really exciting. And then, of course, the tusks were a big problem.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that during the movie, especially with those opening shots of Der Tann and how. So do they just in the rendering like after is it just kind of plugged in as it goes to work around the tusks when they're converting from the facial capture to the rendering? Is that just automatic, or do you just kind of go back afterwards and tweak it?
Our process is to do the facial capture and solve it onto the actor's face first. And that way we can put the two side by side, the video and the actor's face, and say, okay, we've got the performance over accurately. Then the actor and Der Tann, or the orc, share the same topology, the same mesh. Mm-hmm. So all of that can just translate over directly. And we did make an effort at the beginning of the project to incorporate the sort of key facial lines of the actors into the orcs. So, we had a design for Der Tann, we had a design for Orgrim, but we went back once Toby and Rob were cast, and we just sort of found the key lines in their facial structure and made sure that those matched in the orcs so that their facial performance would translate as good as they possibly could. There's still very big proportional differences between like Toby's lips and Der Tann's lips, but the tusks we did as essentially using what's called Deformer, and it was actually technology that we got from Pixar that they wrote for Monsters University for Sully. Mm-hmm. And we had to build upon that in order to get it for the orcs to work, but it ended up being very useful. And that is one of the great things about Lucasfilm and ILM now being part of Disney, is that we share technology with Pixar, we share technology with Disney Animation, and that's been very beneficial, I think, for all the companies. Even though they're in feature animation and we're in visual effects, the procedures that we use are very similar.
Yeah.
I was wondering if Gul'dan was like the biggest challenge because of his face and the the underbite, the huge underbite, and then his hunch as well.
Gul'dan was just mean. That's how we described the design.
Really?
For computer graphics, it's his character was difficult. Then he had these huge spikes out his back. Yep. Then he had a long beard, long flowing beard. Then on top of all that, a flowing robe that was in strips because it had to sort of hide the fact that later he, reveals with that. And then on top of that, just so much dangly stuff. Yeah. Little skulls hanging on ropes, and he had his staff, and that had more skulls hanging on that. All that has to be simulated. Yes. Our biggest challenge on this project was you look at the shot and then you're like, okay, is anything going through each other? Because we get the dynamics right, but invariably something would interpenetrate, and we'd be like just ready to final the shot, and then we'd see something like, oh, a skull is through his finger. Okay, all right, go fix that. That was I would say Gul'dan was probably the most difficult character we had to do for the film. He actually also has, way down at the end of his robe, you only see it in a couple of shots, he's got all these brambly branches that are just connected to the base of his robe. Yeah. You see it in one shot, I think, really, when he's up on the portal before he opens it in Draenor. So he was the toughest, but Draco's braids. Draco also was probably the orc we were the most afraid of, because the male orcs have enough character and grizzleness that they're a little more forgiving. Like, Draco is very human looking. Yes. And so we had long discussions on how monstery should we make her. Like, the original design had no eyebrows, and it was cool. It was very monstery, but then you put the facial capture on, it's like, I can't read her expression. So we then just started to add eyebrows in, back just enough to get that to come through.
And I would say she was one of the most expressive that I could see. You know, in the beginning, she's laying there. You can tell she's uncomfortable with her belly, you know, and her face is, you know, kind of oomping. And when she's threatening to try to save her baby, you know, she's downright freaking scary.
I know. Yeah. You know, Anna Galvin, who plays Draka, is a mom as well, and I think he was able to channel a lot of that, you know, into that character. She has actually one of my favorite shots in the film, which is just after Der Tann, you know, Black Hand comes to collect Der Tann. She's kind of holding Thrall and looks away and has like almost tears like forming in her eyes. It's amazing. I was like, wow, that's incredible. And you know, so much of that came from Anna's performance and then from the artist working on that shot.
I remember that shot, and that was that was super powerful. And just those little details that you guys put in there to make these orcs and all of these characters really connect with us. I mean, I can understand that there's criticism about the universe, but there's no criticism about any of the effects that I saw. You know, I think they were beyond what I would have expected at all as a fan of Warcraft. So kudos to you guys.
That's great. It's really nice. You know, I think when the trailers first came out, they don't necessarily show off the visual effects in the best way. And you also don't get to see that, like, there's a style to this film, but it's applied consistently across the entire film.
Yeah.
And that style was really to embrace that Blizzard aesthetic. And, you know, we worked very closely with those guys to really understand all the details of it, because we're such, you know, huge fans of not only the games, but just the art that they've done over the years. And, of course, with the cinematics, like, set such a high bar as far as how good these can look. So, so it was a real inspiration for us on this project.
It's fantastic. Man, you've given us amazing information about this. Marconin, did you have more questions that you wanted to ask Jeff?
Well, for anyone that is wanting to get, you know, anyone that wants to work for you guys, or anybody who wants to get into animation, what would be kind of the directions you would steer them or advice you would give them? Are there any kind of like programs that you use that, you know, us outside of ILM could get our hands on to kind of work and try and learn the tools of the trade as we're wanting to apply? Like, what tools do we need going in?
That's a great question.
It's a very good question. You know, there's so many routes into this industry now that, like, you know, Wang from Blizzard is a great example. He was just doing fan art in China, and they loved it so much they hired him. You know, and he was posting his work online. There's, you know, compared to when I was interested in computer graphics, there's so much free information out there. Really, a lot of it just takes like a lot of interest. And I would say, you know, getting into computer graphics, it's a great time to do it, because between movies, television, video games, there's just so much work out there. You know, for people that are interested in it, you can absolutely go to school, and I think the great thing about going to Savannah was not only the instructors, but also the other students that you meet there. I mean, you learn so much from everybody sort of collectively trying to learn Maya at the same time, and you know, trying to get, you know, through some of the more difficult technical processes. But I would say, while we still have a lot of proprietary software, especially for things like simulation, we're more off the shelf than ever before. We use Maya, we use Nuke, we use Clarice, we use 3ds Max, we use V-Ray. We use a lot of tools that anybody can pick up and work with. And getting a job is really, like, number one, just comes down to the demo reel. Like, that's like anybody that they're going to hire, you know, you just look at the reel, and, you know, if the work is solid, you won't have any trouble getting a job. And the first job is definitely the hardest to get. Like, once you have one thing on your resume, you can work almost anywhere. And, you know, there's so many companies hiring now to do this work that I think there's definitely a lot of avenues open. But I would say also, like, the demo reel will get you the interview, but everybody sort of hires for personality as well. Yeah. Because it's definitely a collaborative industry, and it's a incredibly collaborative process. And and we all just kind of want to have fun doing this because the hours can be long and it can be very stressful. You want to work with really great people, and so we always look for people that just seem like they'd be really fun to work with.
Yeah.
Would you recommend internships to
the
companies?
I mean, any way you can get your foot in the door. For me personally, I got an internship at Vinton, and then after that internship I was offered a job there, and then while I was there, actually shortly after I left, they became Leica Studios, and they do a lot of really amazing stop motion animation now. But from the internship you get a job, and from the job you can get the next job, and so pretty much any way you can find your way in the door is good. I applied to ILM for the IT department when I first got out of undergraduate and got rejected, and so I like to remind them of that all the time. It's like, I see, not good enough to run some Cat5 cable around, right?
Yeah, exactly. Are you able to talk about what you're working on currently?
Only I'm working on Kong Skull Island. It's
really?
Yeah. So I can't say anything more about it, but I'm extremely excited about it.
Excellent. Marconin, any other questions?
Let's see. None that I can think of. I was kind of looking over the list, but you must answered all the ones that I wanted answered.
Absolutely.
It's an easy project for me to talk about, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. You've given us some outstanding information, things that we had no idea. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your really busy schedule to come onto our show to talk with us, Jeff. You are amazing. And it's such a cool... I hope that we get a sequel so we can do this again.
Yes.
In a couple of years, right?
Yes, I hope we do too. Because we've built all these orcs that we want to use again.
Yeah.
But also, it was so fun to work on a project that has such a huge and dedicated fan base. And I talk a lot in interviews about. We were about 3 months from the end of the project, and we had all the guys from Blizzard come up to ILM, and it was Chris Metzen and Nick Carpenter and Mike Morhaime, and. It was amazing. We very rarely get to work on a property where you can meet the creators of it.
Yeah.
And so that was a very unique experience, and I think for them, to be able to meet all of the people working on it was great, and for everybody at ILM to be able to see these people that had actually created this world that I used to play on my 486, dialed up over a modem. Was incredible, and this as much as Duncan had to make a movie for everybody, it definitely was a movie made for the fans, and we'd love to do it again.
Yeah, we could definitely tell that it was a love letter to us, and we appreciate Duncan for doing all he did, and especially for you guys for making it so believable and so relatable to all of the characters, not just the human performers, but also especially the orcs, because I think that was the greatest challenge is, not letting the humans be good and the orcs be bad, but really showing all the emotion and everything with the orcs. So thank you all for that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's all Duncan. That was his pitch for the film, and he really came in with this movie shouldn't be about one side. It should be balanced. It should be showing there's good and bad on both sides. And I think that was really brilliant, and it makes it structurally and narratively a very difficult thing to pull off. But I loved that he gave so much time to the orcs in this film because, of course, we love creating characters.
Yeah,
definitely.
Just a little feedback to pass along to your team from the chat room. Noblesse says, please tell your coworkers you made a lot of people smile and a fair number of us cry.
That's great. I have to say, when Khadgar levels up at the end, I was like, I can't wait to see this with a room full of Warcraft fans, because it's such a great moment.
I wish that you could have been with us in Minnesota. Like, I seriously, when you and Dan were threatening to come out there, I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool. Because we were all just laughing. We clapped at the end, and it was so...
That's fantastic.
That was great. Also, we wanted to share, Reloki24 on Twitter said, make sure to tell them they're visual effects magicians of greatness.
Oh, thank you.
Please let them know, your team know. The fans really did appreciate all of the hard work that you guys put in there.
No, thank you. It was definitely a labor of love, and I mean, we would be back to do it again in an instant if they can get that off the ground.
Powers that be that are listening to this, please.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Please let Jeff and his team do this again. Let us see another film, because we need to see Thrall's story. We need to see Arthas' story. I'm just putting my soapbox out there and saying, let's do this.
Yeah. Duncan is ready. You know, he's got it mapped out. He knows where he wants to go. So, I really hope that.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Sure.
It's probably there's some magic milestone box office that has to cross, and then they'll say like, okay, we'll do this again. So whatever that is, I really hope it makes it, because I think it's a very challenging film to make, but Duncan was absolutely the right guy to do it.
I agree. Yeah. I felt like he took this into his capable hands for us. And by the way, have you ever been able to make it out to BlizzCon, Jeff?
Yes, I made it the year they showed a little bit of footage. So it was like the close-up on Der Tann, and it was kind of just a little bit at the front end. It was amazing. I mean, it was actually the first BlizzCon that I'd been to. I loved it. It was so fun. I actually, the day we went to the premiere, I went to Blizzard down in Irvine.
Yes.
And that was awesome. I mean,
isn't that great? It's like fun. Disneyland.
Yeah, it is. It's really fun.
Well, I don't even know. You guys are probably like Disneyland too. Your offices are probably pretty amazing.
We have some cool old stuff around here.
That is awesome. Well, I hope that if we do get a sequel, that our paths can cross again, especially at BlizzCon, because the two of us go every year. So that we will definitely stay in touch. And is it okay if I share your Twitter information?
Yeah, sure.
Jeff is at J2White1 on Twitter. Has warned us that he doesn't use it a ton.
Yeah, and you'll notice it's incredibly blank, so you'll give me a good reason to get on there and start answering questions.
We'll give you incentive to come out there, and so give Jeff your love. Let him know you enjoyed this interview, and we absolutely appreciate all the time. You have a busy schedule, and you're heading out to Singapore this weekend, so thank you for squeezing us in to that to be able to do this with us. It was awesome.
I'm happy to do it. And actually, you're the guys I want to talk to anyhow, because, for all of us here, we want to know how the fans reacted to it. So it's very fun to be able to discuss it with you.
Well, keep checking that Twitter, because I think you're going to get a lot of stuff. So with that, I'm going to just close out the show with a couple of pieces of information, doing that right now. Tauren Think Tank is a proud member of the Signals Media All-Star Network. Find out more about the other shows on the network by going to signalsmedia.com. Do you have your show notes up? I'm kind
pulling
of
them. I got them right now. Portions of the music and sound effects heard on the show can be found at incompetech.com and freesound.org. You can find us outside of the show on our website, taurenthinktank.com, which has all of our podcasts and information on how to get in touch with us, too.
Thank you to all who support our show via Patreon. If you'd like to help out Triple T, you can do so at patreon.com/Tauren Think Tank. You can also meet other members of the Triple T community on our Discord server. The quick way to get there is tinyurl.com/TTTchat2.
You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Tauren Think Tank. You can find us on Twitter for the show at Tauren Think Tank. You can find Jules at Jules RPG, myself Marconin at Marconin Wow, and our special guest Jeff White at J2White1.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, chat room, for being with us tonight on our special night. Sunday night normally is our recording night, and we'll be back this Sunday at 8 o'clock Central Daylight Time. You can find us on twitch.tv/Tauren Think Tank. We love seeing you guys with us every week. Jeff, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
With us
thank you. Appreciate it.
You're a great
For the Alliance, by the way.
Yes!
The Alliance unit.
Sorry, Horde. We're sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
We're not sorry. We're not sorry. We'll see you guys next Sunday with a regular show, and we thank you for all checking us out. For myself, for Marconin, for Jeff. Until next time, /moo, everybody.
/moo.
Tauren Think Tank. We make your problems less bad.
This podcast is a part of the Signals Media All-Star Network. For more information on this and other fine shows, go to signalsmedia.com. It's okay to stick our stuff in your ears. Really?
Really?
Really.
Okay, now all the other stuff is done.
That's great. You guys had an amazing production.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
This is actually like, we have our show is normally a lot longer, a lot of broken up into segments, but we did this specifically on this front, and I couldn't thank you enough. You're great.
Oh, sure. No, it was very fun. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Chat room, we're going to let Jeff go and enjoy the rest of his busy day. So we will see you guys on Sunday. We might move to Thursday like next week. We'll figure it out. We're trying to get onto our normal schedule. But
we'll work it out.
We'll see you guys soon. Bye,
we will.
everybody.
See you guys later.
Bye.